Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of The Bullet. My name is Paul Lathrop. I'm the Deputy Director of New Media for the Second Amendment Foundation. Joining me today, Tom Walls from the Firearms Academy of Seattle. Tom, thanks for joining me today, man.
Hey, Paul.
Well, a little bit of an explanation to start with. I intended on it being a slow news day. It's April 1st, my least favorite day of the year. I do not like April Fool's Day. I prefer to feel like I'm smart rather than feel like I'm an idiot. I do not like April Fool's Day jokes. And so I was planning on doing just a straight discussion about something non-news related today, but we've got news. We got breaking news we've got to cover, man.
Got some great news, actually.
Yes, we
you and
do.
I were just talking about.
Let me start off with it just broke a few hours ago, and I'm getting social media hooked up trying to divide my attention, which is not easy for me these days. But getting social media hooked up, I want to remind you, if you want to get in on the show, comment on either the Facebook or YouTube live video. We'll get your comments up as soon as they come through my software. Or if you have a Twitter account, you can comment with the hashtag Bullet Podcast. That gets through the fastest, and we'll get your comments on the air. So to start with, just a few hours ago, the Georgia legislature finally got all its ducks in a row. They passed permitless carry. It's on its way to Governor Kemp's desk. He has said previously he's going to sign it. It looks like Georgia is going to be number 25 in the states that are going to be permitless carry.
That's pretty amazing, really. I think half the states. How many people does that cover, Paul? Of the U.S. population, is that 50% or less?
No, it's now, well, it's not quite 50% of the population, but what it does do is it makes it so that there are more people in once Georgia, actually the law goes into effect, there will be more people in permitless carry states than there are in may issue states. There will be more people in truly free states than there are in you may or may not, or in California, in some areas of California and Hawaii's, and New Jersey, you really won't get a permit there. There are more people that do not have to have a permit, period.
I think that's fantastic. Every time this happens, for years we've all heard the Cassandra calls. Oh my God, it'll be blood in the streets and Wild West. And people will lose their tempers and shoot it every single time. It never happens. And that gets glossed over until the next state explores permitless carry.
Absolutely. And we heard that last year specifically with Texas. And we heard it ringing. Oh, there's going to be just the horror that's coming, and afterwards we got a huge nothing burger is what we got out of it
with no sauce. Yes. I think of something. I run into this in the training world. A lot of people that are not gun people, that didn't grow up like them, like my wife and I did, all they know is what they see on TV or Gunsmoke reruns. I grew up on Roy Rogers and could hear Maverick playing downstairs when I got sent to bed. So we grew up with the cowboy era back in the 50s and 60s. And they're all wearing cowboy hats, and they're all toting guns, and they're all going out at high noon for some ridiculous reason. And people see nothing else, and even subconsciously, that's their normal. So I'm not surprised people think that. What disappoints me about intelligent people that are not rabid anti-gunners is they don't look at the numbers. And this is an education thing. We need to keep bringing that back up to them.
Well, and you still see that from time to time when you see police videos and you see actual fatalities where the police had to end something right now. Mm-hmm. And you hear the comment, well, why didn't they just shoot the gun out of his hand? Not realizing what an impossible shot that is.
That's I served in law enforcement for about 6 years as a reserve officer, so I got to carry the real gun and point it at real bad guys and take him to the real jail. and train with the real cops. And then as a trainer at FAS, we get cops coming on their own dime. The cop that spends his own dime or her own dime to come and train with any professional school, be it us or any of the quality schools, is an unusual individual and to be congratulated. But by and large, cops look at firearms as a tool. A taser is a tool, a baton is a tool, a radio is a tool, a car is a tool. And they don't really get into it. Sometimes not the best shots, sometimes amazing. But yeah, that shoot him in the arm thing, oh, come on. That's a real tough thing to do. If you've ever shot at moving targets, even a piece of paper going laterally, at a constant speed, it's a real challenge.
It's been a little over 2 years ago. No, it's been about 2 years ago now that I took the active shooter interdiction class at the
Firearms
Academy of Seattle. The hardest thing I ever had to do with a firearm, and as part of this class, I had to shoot at a moving target while I was moving.
It's pretty real world, isn't it?
Oh my goodness. I considered myself at that time a pretty decent shot. That is a level above another level. That is difficulty above difficulty. Wow.
It's one thing when you're standing on your hind legs before God, you've got all the time in the world. My wife and I jumped in on one of our FAS classes. It was an accuracy class. I can shoot real tiny little groups, and everybody's a sniper at 5 yards. And if I've got no pressure and no time, but if somebody's shooting back at me, or I've got other things to worry about, and I've got to move at the same time, and my target's not standing there stock still, I don't know if there's other bad guys. That stress level does make it kind of interesting.
Yes, it does. One more story before we get off to our regular, what we had planned on talking about, and that is this. This is just half an hour before we went live. There was an announcement from the SAF that there's been a win in the Fifth Circuit, the federal Fifth Circuit, and that is that New Jersey had sued to try and be removed from the SAF defense distributed case that was brought, and they lost. This has been going on for a very long time. This case has been going on, and New Jersey now has to stay in that case. The SAF won, and this is a First Amendment case. This is not a Second Amendment case on its base. This is saying that Defense Distributed and the Second Amendment Foundation have the right to distribute the files as they see fit on the internet. This is a free speech case. This is not a Second Amendment case.
This made the conventional news media pretty well, didn't it? It's a real good example of that line from the movie Serenity. Can't stop the signal.
There you go.
Interesting to me that it's a First Amendment case. I have a very close relative, I won't name names, but he's very dear to me, that is not a fan of the Second Amendment whatsoever, but is a strong, nearly rabid proponent of the First Amendment. Be interesting to have that discussion with him. They do go together. You're responsible for what you do when you carry a gun, what you do when you say things in public. But I find it fascinating that the Fifth Circuit made the ruling that they made.
Yes. And the reason it's the Fifth Circuit is the Fifth Circuit covers Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi. Defense Distributed is Texas, is based in Texas. And that's why it's a Fifth Circuit ruling. So I want to get to a couple of comments here if I could. And
you do that. I'll figure out my tea addiction here.
Patrick Collins says, I think Georgia will be the second most populated state with permitless carry. I think you're right. Texas, I believe, is the most populous state with permitless carry. I think Georgia will be number 2. And I'm just pulling numbers off the top of my head, and we all know the issues I have with my head sometimes.
And I'm older than you are, so yes.
Charlie Chambers commented, and this is a fairly long one. The district court erred legally and factually in virtually every aspect of this issue in its decision, which unnecessarily lengthened this litigation even more and represents a clear abuse of discretion. This is out of that same ruling we were just talking about. Yeah. So I'm very pleased that New Jersey is New Jersey is brought back into us. I think what happened is they seen the writing on the wall. They seen when this got made into a First Amendment case, they weren't able to make their case that they should be let out. That they tried to get out of it, and now they get drugged back in. This is good news. This is good news.
Well, and unfortunately, just the brief time I had to go over this, I see that in the state of Washington, my own state attorney general, Bob Ferguson, was, it's a nice way, polite way to say this, an instigator and a supporter of New Jersey's attempts to sever.
Well, we'll have
folks, don't get down to me because I'm from Washington State. I don't live in Seattle. Nor is the Firearms Academy of Seattle any longer in Seattle. We're in Free Lewis County.
They are. You're a good, hour and a half, 2 hours south of downtown Seattle.
We're about an hour south. We're about roughly midway between Seattle and Portland. Mm-hmm. We're just off I-5, but we've got we're in a very conservative rural county, which allows us the latitude to have the huge amount of acreage and number of ranges we have.
Let's go on to let's go on to the discussion I intended us to have when we started today. And
the one I actually went up on.
Yeah, I ran across, and I cannot believe I've been doing Second Amendment broadcasting now for just about 10 years. And I cannot believe that I had not run across this article until earlier this week. I ran across an article written by Greg Ellifritz back in 2011. He did a study of actual stopping power of everything from 22 short all the way up to a 12-gauge shotgun. And this was a study of actual shootings that he could get all the information from. And Greg Ellifritz, for those of you who may not know, a police officer, police trainer in Ohio, and he has statistics and this took a very long time for him to compile, but he has statistics from several hundred, I would say over 1,000.
I believe the number in the article was 1,800, which is substantial. That's a very large database and a lot of work.
Yeah, 1,800 shootings, and he breaks it down by the number of people shot with each caliber, the number of hits, the percentage of hits that were fatal, average number of rounds until incapacitation, percentage of people that were not incapacitated, one-shot stops, accuracy, that's the percentage of the shots that were head or torso hits, and percent actually incapacitated by one shots. And so, I found the article absolutely fascinating. And I wanted to break this down. And when I pitched it to you, Tom, I said, well, let's actually dive into 9 versus 40 versus 45. And I think the way I'm going to break this down is handguns suck.
You're not going to get an argument out of me. The cool thing to say is you use your handgun to fight your way to your rifle. Yeah, well, fine. I don't have a rifle nearby most of the time. Handguns are what we carry. We can carry them concealed and conveniently. The other part of that is that handguns suck because they're really not ballistically very strong. Mm-hmm. The typical number we toss out in training, and I've heard this from a number of other good sources, is that handgun wounds are typically 80 to 85% survivable if you've got a trauma center within an hour. That's not much. So we have to talk about things called psychological stops, which are, damn, I just got shot. I don't want to get shot again. I'm stopping doing what I was doing that got me shot.
This stinking hurts. Stop it.
It
yes.
And Greg goes into that. One of the things I really like about Greg's article, and you can argue the fact that it was from 2011, I think it's still valid. And I'll tell you why in a minute. The things I like about it is he goes in, he has a large sample size, he's looking at valid things, and he takes the time to define what he means by a stop, what he means by a hit, and he's looking at accuracy, and he'll take that and he'll speculate, and then he goes into reasons why those speculations might be false. So I found it was very honest. I did not see any bias anywhere, and he goes on and says he doesn't sell ammo or work for the ammo companies.
Yeah.
There were a couple interesting points in that, but go ahead. You look like you've got something hot there.
Well, I would just wanted to mention to the people who are watching us live that both on the Facebook side and the YouTube side, I put links to the article we're talking about in the comments section just now. So if you want to look at it, you want to look at that article, please do. And
Go ahead.
One of the things I love about what he did is he broke down, even going back down to 22 long rifle.
He went down to 22 short. That's like shooting at the fair, at least what we used to do in the old days before insurance got ridiculous. But he did break it down. He's pretty consistent with what he looked at.
Well, but he combined 22 short and 22 long rifle into one category.
Right. I'm looking at the numbers. If you look at the section of his, it says number of people shot, which is telling 1, 2, 3, 4. 22 in all its versions, short, long, and long rifle, are like fifth on the list. The number one caliber with the most shootings, and not surprisingly for handguns, is 9mm, which is over twice the next one at 45. What he does not go into, and he's very clear about saying it, is he does not break it down by ammo type. For instance, hardball versus hollow point versus exotic versus slugs versus birdshot. I think that was because the data was simply not available, and it was very honest of him to say that, but that's a huge variable, even more so than shot placement would be.
Well, let's face it, if you're shot with 9mm defensive ammo, the expanding ammo, that's gonna create a huge wound channel. If you're shot with 9mm ball, it's gonna be a little bitty wound channel that goes all the way through you, all the way through the wall behind you, and probably lands in the refrigerator behind that.
Or the traditional blonde-haired, blue-eyed, cute little kid. The other thing is you've got the physics involved. If the bullets are through and through, which is a problem with the NATO 9mm round, it tends to poke holes through people rather than making holes in people. Is that the kinetic energy involved does not stay in the body. It goes through and carries the bullet through the target, rather than having all that energy dumped in the target, causing the hydrostatic wound. So you've got foot-pounds of energy dumping in a body, or you've got it poking a hole. That's the difference between driving a needle, or a knitting needle, a long one, through somebody with a hammer, or just hitting with a hammer.
Right.
And it feels a little different. And it still will do things, but you've got a small hole, literally, fingertip size. There's the camera right there. Fingertip size, 9mm, which is not that much different than 45 at 11mm. Poking a straight hole, hoping you hit something, rather than creating a wound channel as an expanding bullet expands, and dumping that energy in there, the temporary as well as the crushed cavity, damaging more tissue, making more things bleed. You've got to either get it to leak blood or air, or hit the nervous system and shut the whole circuit down. Other than that, it may be a Pyrrhic victory. You may put enough 9mm jacketed rounds through and through somebody, and they may die, or they may stop, but it's going to take a while. And in that while, they may kill you back, or they may hurt you back. So it's not instantaneous. Absolutely. Something else Greg brings up is the caliber choice. He's talking at 380. It isn't even in the top 5 for things, but we consider that in the business kind of a minimum. I'm looking here at some of the numbers. The incapacitation actually says it works better if you look at the straight numbers. But let's look at the number of shots to incapacitation. He's saying that in his study, incapacitated by one, let's see. No, let's go to number of rounds, 1.76.
Yep.
They take more for the 45. Another issue is if you can shoot the gun faster because you've got less recoil and it's more controllable. Say in 1 second you're getting 4 or 5 rounds in somebody. That's pretty fast. That splits about a quarter second. Whereas you take the other extreme, for an example, say 357 Magnum 44. He didn't get into 10 millimeter in the study, unfortunately. You're going to have slower from shot to shot. It may take fewer shots. Something that expert witnesses have to deal with, and I know several that have lectured on things in classes you and I both taken. Mm-hmm. If you're shooting very, very quickly, bang, 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 as fast as you can dump the magazine and you still get hits, the first shot may be here and then here, and as the guy's turning away, it's past the midline, which makes it technically a shooting in the back.
Yes.
And juries like those. Oh, you shot him in the back. Why did you need to do that? It's happening. The bad guy, the goblin, is acting more quickly than you can pull that bullet back, than your nervous system can stop. Some law enforcement agencies are actually teaching and training their officers to shoot a bit more deliberately and mindfully to reassess. Split times the time from one shot to the next. For a competitor, quarter-second splits or less are pretty good. They're training these officers to take a half a second to reevaluate. Bang, bang. Oh, I see that shot has finally stopped the bad guy from doing what he was doing to make me shoot him in the first place. And then I can stop without putting more holes in him. So the first 2 shots may have done the job, but if you're putting 4 or 5 more in there, that skews the numbers.
Yeah. And I guess if you do go out and get that handgun in 45-70, it's going to take you a while to get the tingle out of your wrist so you can make that second shot.
Yeah, but it looks so wicked cool. I was talking to a cousin of mine who was playing one of the online kill all the bad guys video games, and she was bragging about having, in my belt and my character, I've got a 500 Magnum, which she meant the Smith & Wesson 500.
Right.
And I cautioned her in real life she might not want to go doing that. But
I shot a 50 Action Express when I was very early in my handgun shoot. I've never owned one. I shot one when I was very early.
It's always best with somebody else's gun.
Yeah. When I was just beginning to shoot handguns, I shot a 50 Action Express. And the muzzle rise on that thing, again, I was not a trained shooter at the time. Mm-hmm. I had not taken any professional handgun training. The muzzle flip was not measured in inches. It was measured in feet.
I can believe it.
That was an experience. Let me get a comment up in here. Charlie Chambers wants to say the foot per second muzzle velocity is key too. Over 2,300 feet per second breaks a tissue elasticity, larger wound channel than 1K feet per second. FBI statistics discovered this. And I think, Tom, this is where we break off into where you should
get into rifle territory.
Yeah, rifle and shotgun territory. And Greg did go into that in his study as well. He looked at rifle. He looked at shotgun in his study. There were, let me go to that section. Whereas 9mm, there were 456 cases of people shot with 9mm. All centerfire rifle, there were 126 people shot with.
Right, I'm looking at here.
And average number of rounds with rifle until incapacitation, 1.4. So 1 to 2 shots is all it took to stop them. Percent of people that are actually incapacitated by 1 shot, 80%. The only thing that did any better, and that was shotgun, and all shotgun, 90% of them were 12 gauge shotguns, And percent actually incapacitated by one shot, 86%. And there were 146 cases of people being shot by a shotgun compared to 126 of centerfire rifles. So,
like we were talking about earlier, he didn't break it down into bullet type. With the rifle, Charlie's very nicely and very correctly bringing up the 2,300 feet per second and tissue elasticity. The magic number is usually about 2,000 feet per second to get a good wound channel. A typical AR-15 shooting either 223 Remington or 5.56 NATO will get velocities, at least a 16-inch barrel, up 3,100 feet per second, sometimes a bit more with a longer barrel. You lose it with the AR pistols. You don't need specialized ammo. That's gonna leave a nasty wound channel even with solid ammunition. So for our defensive use around Browncoat Manor, we don't have any specialized ammunition. We just shoot what we know works and we know the velocities. The shotgun data, though, and you and I were talking about this earlier, is interesting because some people think birdshot's the way to go, despite repeated recommendations from instructors that it is not really a stopper. If you get shot with birdshot, yeah, it's going to hurt. Yeah, it's going to bleed. And yeah, you're going to say, I don't want to get shot again. But as far as actual incapacitation, no. I am sure, in my opinion, but I'm sure that if you looked exclusively at the triple-aught or double-aught buck, or slugs. Can you imagine getting hit with a 1 ounce slug of lead going 1,100, 1,200 feet per second? That's going to hurt.
Yeah, it's going to leave a mark. No more than that.
Again, and Greg very, very honestly and correctly points out that he was unable to break that down into bullet type. So there's enough wiggle in those numbers without that data. And the fact that nearly all of these calibers that he looked at, including long guns, the stops were basically between 2 and 3 shots to incapacitate, to get the bad guy to stop doing what he or she was doing that made you shoot him in the first place, which is the idea.
Yeah. And I want how do I put this? The shotgun, going back to birdshot, anything you do at very close distance, I mean, birdshot, is it going to be fatal? If you're close enough, yes.
Oh, yeah.
The wad would be fatal if you're close enough. But I'm telling you, the defensive, what the Lathrop household is, number one defense tool is my handgun. Number 2 defense tool is Susan backing me up. Number 3 defense tool is my AR, and then in there is somewhere between there and Susan getting her back up is the shotgun. And the shotgun is loaded, number 1 with double-aught buck, number 2 is a slug. And I would never consider, I cannot think of a reason to load birdshot for defensive.
From a trainer's point of view, we see a lot of people wonderfully now, new shooters, coming out for handgun training. That's fantastic. And we're seeing people we've never seen before. Did a class not long ago, again, was not an advanced class, but we're seeing 50% female roughly, consistently. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, we were seeing 10 or 15%. We see fewer people in the shotgun class than any of the others. It's just not popular, yet people seem to think a shotgun is the ultimate home defense thing. And you bring up the concept of patterning your shotgun and eyes glaze over and they go, but I just have to point it. Because again, the media has, the entertainment media has given us this false impression that all you have to do is put the shotgun in the same room and point it in the general direction and you destroy half the room. And that's, as you and I know, simply not true. Seeing where the gun patterns depending on the load and, a whole bunch of factors.
Yes.
Real useful thing. That said, I love a shotgun for home defense.
It's absolutely a game changer. 100%. We're coming up on the time we have, and so, and I knew we were going to burn through time talking about this, but...
Well, you were worried about this 2 days ago with just the one story, and here you go.
So,
April Fool.
Basically, what I'm going to say to wrap this up from my standpoint, 9:40, 45, I'm going to say carry what you like, what fits your hand, and what you can put shots on target with. And that is what you can be effective with. Carry that, and it doesn't matter what caliber it's in.
I would add to that quickly, as far as ammo, get any of the major brands of defensive ammo. Spend a couple of bucks and buy a few boxes of it to make sure it feeds in your gun. Because, oh my God, wouldn't it be terrible if you've got your Uber Blaster and your Megadeth defensive ammo and it jams the gun up after one round. Make sure we do this. We won't carry a gun unless we put a few hundred rounds to it, malfunction free, and 50 to 100 rounds of defensive ammo. It ain't cheap.
One thing I've done in the past, and I do it with every gun I'm going to use, that I'm going to put my life on. When I go to train with it, I buy the absolute cheapest, nastiest ammo I can buy for training. I want there to be failures because I want to have experience clearing malfunctions with that gun.
There you go.
So, and every gun I've used for real life, every gun I carry on my hip, I've had malfunctions with. I've cleared malfunctions with. So,
I've shot police quals and used not the best ammo and had malfunctions. Yes, with a 1911. Thank you for asking. And was able to clear the malfunction, still make score and make time. So, yeah.
Very cool. All right, well, I think we're going to go ahead and leave this one here. One last comment on our way out. Mike says, unfortunately, too many people believe Hollywood.
Hey, Mike.
I honestly believe that's why we have some of the stupid laws we have, is because some lawmakers believe Hollywood. Yeah, otherwise we wouldn't have some of the laws we have. Because honestly, silencers don't silence anything.
No. When I'm teaching and there's a rifle class, I'll stop if I hear somebody using a suppressor and say, hear that? 200 yards over there? That's a suppressed rifle. No, they're not silent. You could get 5 or 6 segments out of that, Paul.
All right. Well, how about we set this one aside? Next time when you join us, I want to talk situational awareness.
Oh, now you're in my wheelhouse.
All right. Folks, do come. Please join us noon Central Time tomorrow on Saturday. It's going to be a great show. We've got Mike Piwowarski. We've got Rick Ector. He's going to be talking about the last weekend in July 30th, I believe, and 31st. He's going to be training over 2,000 women that weekend. Susan and I are going up to Detroit to help him train. We're going to be talking about that. Charlie Cook, Mike Piwowarski, Rick Ector for The Bullet tomorrow, noon Central Time. Please come join us. Thanks for watching, everybody.
See you later.